The air over the ranch was still when the sun dipped below the ridge. The kind of quiet that makes even the wind forget to move. He had just finished closing the gate when he saw her, a small shape slumped near the fence line, half covered in dust and dry grass. At first he thought it was an animal, but when she shifted, weak and trembling, something cold ran down his spine. He hurried closer, boots crunching on the dirt. Her dress was torn, her face streaked with sweat and dirt. She tried to speak, but the sound came out broken, caught between a sob and a whisper. He knelt beside her, reaching out to lift her up. That's when she said it, soft but clear. "Please, don't take the cloth off." He froze. His hand hovered just inches from her shoulder. The cloth she spoke of was wrapped around her upper arm, dark and soaked through. She clutched it tightly, as if holding herself together. He looked at her, really looked, and saw the fear in her eyes. Not pain, fear. The kind that doesn't come from a wound but from what lies beneath it. "It's all right," he said, trying to sound calm. "You're hurt. I just need to see." She shook her head weakly, eyes wide, voice trembling. "You can't. Please, you can't." He didn't understand, but the desperation in her voice stopped him cold. He glanced around. The land was empty, the horizon fading into night. Coyotes cried somewhere far off. He knew he couldn't leave her there. Gently, he lifted her into his arms. She was lighter than she should have been, fragile as a dry branch. He carried her toward the barn, the only light coming from a lantern flickering by the door. Inside, the air smelled of hay and smoke. He laid her down on the work table, the old wood creaking beneath her. She tried to speak again, but the words slipped away. Her hand still pressed against the wrapped arm, her breathing uneven. He could see she was fading fast. Every part of him wanted to help, but something in her eyes told him that if he did, nothing would be the same again. The storm outside had grown mean, clawing at the windows like it wanted in. He moved fast, lighting another lantern and pulling an old blanket from the shelf. The woman shivered, her lips pale, her hands gripping that wrapped arm tighter than ever. Every time he tried to look, she turned her face away. He'd seen fear before, rattlesnakes, gun barrels, lightning fires, but not like this. This was something deeper, something that made even the air feel heavy. He poured a little water into a tin cup and held it out to her. "Drink," he said quietly. She took it, trembling so bad half of it spilled down her chin. Her voice was soft when she spoke again. "You shouldn't have brought me here," he frowned. "You were dying out there. That's where I was supposed to be." He didn't answer. There was no sense arguing with a woman who'd nearly collapsed in the dirt. He set another log in the firebox, watching sparks climb into the rafters. She stared at the flames like they were whispering secrets he couldn't hear. "What happened to you?" he asked. Her eyes flicked up to meet his, just for a second. "Something I couldn't run from." He stepped closer. "That wound let me look before it gets worse." She shook her head, clutching the cloth tighter. "You can't take it off. You can't." The way she said it made him pause. Her voice cracked on the last word, almost breaking. He could feel the weight of whatever she was carrying. It wasn't just pain, it was shame, or maybe terror. He sat down across from her, elbows on his knees. "You think I'm the kind of man who turns away from trouble?" She gave a small, bitter laugh. "You'd turn if you knew what kind." He looked at her, steady and calm, though his chest felt tight. "Try me." The wind hit the barn hard enough to make the lantern sway. She jumped, eyes wide, as if the noise outside belonged to something that had followed her here. He noticed then the tracks on her dress weren't just mud. There were handprints, large ones, and something else he couldn't name. He kept his voice even. "You runnin' from someone," her silence said enough. He leaned back, jaw clenching. "If they come here, they'll wish they hadn't." She looked at him again, really looked. "It's not men I'm afraid of," she said quietly. "It's what's after them." He frowned. "What's after them?" Her breathing hitched. "It doesn't stop. Not once it's marked you." He thought she was delirious, fevered from the wound. But then he saw it faint through the edges of the cloth. A glow, just a flicker like embers deep in the weave. He blinked hard, thinking it was the lantern. But when he moved the light away, it stayed. "What is that?" he asked, voice low. Her grip tightened. "It's why I told you not to look." He stepped back, his boots creaking against the old boards. The glow pulsed again like it was alive under her skin. For a heartbeat, the fire in the stove dimmed and the air went colder. "Where'd you get that?" he whispered, her eyes filled with tears. "It wasn't meant for me." He ran a hand through his hair, pacing. "You talk like that mark's got a mind of its own," she nodded weakly. "It does, it's waiting." He stopped pacing. "For what?" Her gaze drifted toward the door. "For the one who broke the vow." The rancher's mouth went dry. The wind slammed the door open for a moment, scattering hay across the floor. He moved to shut it, the sound of the hinges groaning like a warning. When he turned back, she was trembling, her head bowed. He wanted to help her, wanted to believe she was just scared, lost, half crazy from pain. But the light under that cloth kept pulsing, steady as a heartbeat. He poured a bit of whiskey into a tin and held it out. "You need this more than me." She didn't take it. Her eyes stayed locked on his. "When it starts, don't touch me." "What starts?" he asked. She didn't answer. Her body went rigid, her breathing sharp and uneven. The light flared once beneath the cloth, then dimmed again. He could hear the horses outside growing restless, kicking their stalls. He stepped forward. "Hey, stay with me." Her voice came out a whisper. "It's already here." Something in the air changed, a low hum, like the world was holding its breath. The fire flickered and the shadows stretched along the walls. He looked around, every instinct in him screaming that they weren't alone anymore. He turned back to her, but she was staring at the door now. "You brought it inside," she whispered. "It knows your name." His pulse quickened. He reached for his shotgun, eyes darting between the door and her trembling hands. The glow under the cloth pulsed again, brighter this time, too bright to ignore. He didn't understand what was happening, but one thing was clear. Whatever followed her here, it wasn't done yet. The night had turned heavy, pressing against the walls like it wanted to crush the air out of the barn. The fire hissed low, the lantern flickered weakly, and the rancher could hear his own pulse thudding in his ears. The woman sat upright now, clutching her arm, whispering things he couldn't quite catch. Her voice rose and fell like she was talking to someone else, someone who wasn't there. He watched, unsure if it was fever or something darker. Her eyes darted toward the door every few seconds, as if she expected it to open on its own. The horses outside had gone silent, too silent, the kind of quiet that doesn't happen unless something unnatural has passed through. He finally broke the stillness. "You said it's waiting." "What's waiting?" She turned her head slowly, her pupils wide, her voice thin. "It doesn't have a name anymore." He frowned. "Everything's got a name." "Not this," she whispered. "It lost it a long time ago." He tried to make sense of her words. The wind rattled the boards overhead, and for a second he thought he heard a low moan in it, like something human but stretched and hollow. He reached for his shotgun, checking the chamber even though he already knew it was loaded. She saw the movement and shook her head weakly. "You can't shoot what you can't see." Her words set his nerves on edge. "Lady, I've shot plenty of things I couldn't see clear. That usually does the trick." She smiled faintly, though it looked more like pain than humor. "Not this time." He wanted to ask more, but something outside caught his attention, a faint creak, slow and deliberate. The sound of a step, then another, gravel shifting under boots. He turned toward the door, heart pounding harder now. He blew out the lantern and let the darkness swallow them. The faint glow beneath the cloth on her arm pulsed again, barely lighting the edges of her face. He motioned for her to stay quiet, finger to his lips. They waited. The silence stretched until it felt unbearable. Then from the far side of the barn came a faint scratching sound, like nails dragging along the wall. He moved slowly, shotgun ready, breath shallow. The air had grown colder, his breath visible in the dim light of the fading fire. She whispered behind him, "It's following the mark. It smells the blood." He looked back at her, eyes adjusting to the dark. "What do you mean it?" But she didn't answer. Her gaze was fixed on the roof beams above him. He followed her eyes and froze. Something moved up there. Just a shadow at first, slithering between the rafters. Long, slow, soundless. Then it shifted, and for a split second he saw it, pale skin stretched too thin, eyes reflecting the dying light like glass. He raised the gun and fired. The blast echoed through the barn like thunder. Splinters rained down from the roof, smoke curling through the air. When the sound faded, the creature, or whatever it was gone. The horses screamed, kicking violently in their stalls. One broke free, crashing through the gate and disappearing into the dark outside. The rancher reloaded, trying to steady his hands. He turned to the woman, but she was on her knees now, clutching her wrapped arm, crying. "You shouldn't have done that," she said between gasps. "It knows you now." He wanted to shout, to demand answers, but his throat was dry. "What the hell was that thing? It's the reason I told you not to take the cloth off." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "What's under there?" Her fingers trembled as she loosened the knot slightly. The glow spilled out stronger this time, faintly pulsing like a heartbeat. "It's not just a mark," she said. "It's a seal. It keeps it from coming through." He felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold air. "You mean to tell me that thing's tied to you?" Her voice broke. "Not just to me. To whoever sees it." The barn shuddered suddenly, the wooden beams groaning as if something pressed against them from the outside. Dust fell from the ceiling. He spun around, gun ready, eyes darting between the windows. A shadow passed across the cracks, quick and fluid like smoke taking shape. Then came the sound, a low growl that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. It vibrated through the floorboards, deep enough to shake his bones. She screamed. The cloth fell loose completely, and the light from her arm flared bright, throwing their shadows against the walls. The glow spread across her skin in thin, twisting lines, forming symbols he didn't recognize. The sight made his stomach twist. He grabbed her by the shoulders. "Tell me how to stop it." Tears ran down her face. "You can't. You can only pass it on." The air split open behind them with a deafening crack like the world itself had torn. The fire went out. Cold rushed in. He turned, trying to see through the dark, and for an instant he saw the shape again, larger now, crawling along the walls like liquid shadow. Eyes that weren't eyes. A mouth that wasn't a mouth. He fired blindly, the flash lighting the creature for a fraction of a second before it vanished again. The echo of the shot faded, but the growl didn't. It was closer now. He grabbed her, pulling her toward the door. "We're leaving." Now she resisted, shaking her head. "It's too late. Once it touches you, save it," he snapped. "We're not dying here." He dragged her through the smoke and darkness, his grip firm on her arm. As they reached the door, he stopped cold. The mark on her skin had begun to spread, faint lines crawling down toward his own hand. His breath hitched. The same light glowed now under his skin, faint but unmistakable. He dropped her arm like it burned. She looked at him, eyes wide with sorrow. "I told you," she said softly. He stumbled back, shaking, staring at the faint light crawling across his veins. The world around them seemed to shift, the barn, the air, the sound. Everything felt distorted, as though reality itself was bending under the weight of something unseen. Outside, the wind screamed through the valley, carrying voices that didn't belong to the living. He looked back at her one last time, realizing that whatever had followed her here was now part of him too. The rancher stumbled backward until his shoulders hit the wall. His breath came fast, chest heaving. The faint light moving under his skin crawled like it had a will of its own. It pulsed along the veins in his hand, spreading from the spot where he'd touched her. He tried rubbing it off, but the glow only sank deeper, becoming part of him. The woman stared at him, her face pale, eyes wide with guilt and fear. "It knows you now," she whispered. "It's marked you too." He swallowed hard. "Then tell me what it wants." She shook her head. "It doesn't want anything, it just takes." The way she said it made his stomach tighten. He grabbed his hat off the hook and yanked it low. "Then we're getting out of here. You can't run from it." "Watch me," he snapped. He grabbed his shotgun, pushed the barn door open, and stepped into the cold night. The air was thick and still, as if the land itself had stopped breathing. The sky hung low, the moon hidden behind rolling clouds. He could smell smoke from the dying fire, but beneath it came something else, a sour, metallic scent like rain that never touched the ground. She followed him, barefoot and shivering. "It feeds on the dark," she said softly. It'll follow you as long as the light's gone." He ignored her, heading toward the corral. His horse was gone, the one that had broken loose earlier. The other stalls were empty, the gates hanging open. He cursed under his breath. "Then we walk," he muttered. She didn't move. "If you leave, it'll follow the mark. The farther you go, the closer it gets." He turned sharply, his voice rough. "Lady, I don't care what kind of ghost story this is. I ain't sittin' around waiting to be hunted in my own barn." A sound cut through the stillness before she could answer. A low hum, rising slow from the ground beneath their feet. The dirt trembled, he froze. The hum grew louder, turning into a deep guttural rumble. The barn doors behind them banged shut on their own. Her breathing quickened. "It's here." He turned toward the noise, gripping the shotgun tight. The edges of the world seemed to blur, the sky bending, the ground shifting. From the shadows near the fence line, something began to take shape. It moved wrong, like a shadow trying to remember how to walk. Long, thin arms. A head that tilted too far to one side. No face, only a hollow where one should have been. The rancher raised the gun and fired. The shot split the night, echoing off the hills. For a moment the figure broke apart, scattering like smoke, but then it drew back together, whole again. He fired again. The same. It only flinched, then turned toward him. The air thickened, pressing against his chest like water. "Don't look at it," she shouted. He tried to back away, but his legs felt heavy. His heartbeat thudded like a drum in his ears. The thing moved closer, step by slow step, gliding more than walking. "What does it want with me?" he yelled. Her voice cracked. "To finish what it started with me." He turned his head toward her, but the glow on his arm burned brighter now, spreading across his shoulder and chest. The pain seared through him, white-hot and alive. He dropped the gun, falling to his knees. She ran to him, clutching his face in her hands. "You have to fight it. It feeds on fear. That's how it gets in." He could barely hear her through the pounding in his head. The shadows twisted around them, curling through the air like smoke. He felt something reach inside him, pulling, clawing. "Make it stop," he gasped. Her tears fell onto his skin, glistening in the strange light. "You have to let it see you're not afraid." He laughed, a broken, breathless sound. "Not afraid? Lady, I've been afraid since the day I buried my wife." The words hit her like a blow. "That's how it found you," she whispered. "It looks for grief, that's what opens the door." He shook his head, trying to focus. "Then I'll shut it." She stared at him, eyes full of sorrow. "You can't close what's already open." The wind rose again, wild and sudden, carrying a low cry that didn't sound human. The shape grew larger, stretching until it filled the space between the barn and the ridge. The air shimmered around it, bending the light, warping everything it touched. He forced himself to his feet, gripping the shotgun again, even though he knew it was useless. "If it wants me, it'll have to earn it." The woman screamed his name as the shadow lunged. He fired one last shot. The blast tore through the dark, and for an instant everything went white. The sound vanished. So did the thing. The night fell silent again. He staggered backward, chest heaving. The barrel smoked in his hands, but the world felt still, too still. He turned to her. She stood frozen, staring at him like she didn't recognize him. "It's gone," he said. But before he could finish, the glow under his skin flared again, brighter than ever. He stumbled, clutching his arm. The light wasn't fading, it was spreading faster now, crawling across his chest, his throat. Her eyes filled with tears. "It took its shape from you." He stared at her, confusion breaking through the pain. "What?" "It doesn't disappear, it moves. It's part of whoever bears the mark." He fell to one knee, the ground spinning beneath him. The light in his veins pulsed like a heartbeat out of rhythm. He felt it crawl deeper, not just on his skin, but inside, threading through his ribs, his lungs, his heart. She crouched beside him, her hands shaking as she tried to hold his face still. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "You shouldn't have touched me." He looked at her through the haze, eyes full of disbelief and rage and something else, sorrow. "Then why come here?" Her lips trembled. "Because it's dying, and when it does, it needs someone new. I didn't want to die alone." He stared at her, the weight of her words sinking in. The barn walls groaned again, a low echo rolling across the valley. The wind picked up, whistling through the cracks. The glow inside him flickered, then steadied, bright and burning. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled, soft at first, then louder, like footsteps coming closer. The woman backed away, eyes filled with dread. The rancher tried to stand but couldn't. His body felt like it was filled with fire. The last thing he saw was her running toward the open door, the light from inside him spilling across the dirt behind her like a trail. The ground trembled again. The storm had come back, not in the sky this time, but in him. The ground shuddered beneath him, slow and deep, like the heartbeat of something buried. The rancher gasped for air, the taste of iron thick on his tongue. Every nerve in his body burned, the light beneath his skin pulsing in wild, uneven rhythms. He tried to move, but his arms felt heavy, his legs pinned by invisible weight. The air around him vibrated, humming low, almost alive. The barn door slammed open, the wind roaring in like a voice too big for the world. The woman had stopped running. She stood in the doorway, her hair whipping around her face, her expression caught between guilt and sorrow. "It's changing you," she said softly. "It's already inside." He forced himself to speak, his voice rough, uneven. "Then tell me how to stop it." She hesitated. "You can't stop what's been chosen. It doesn't care about right or wrong. It only wants to live." He gritted his teeth, forcing himself upright. "You brought it here, you could have let it die with you." Her eyes glistened. "You think I didn't try?" The glow from his arm flared brighter, veins glowing like thin trails of fire. He staggered toward her, the light moving up his neck, tracing lines under his skin. "Tell me what it wants," he said, his voice trembling. "It doesn't want," she whispered. "It remembers." Something cracked above them. One of the beams gave way, splitting under the pressure of the shaking ground. Dust rained from the rafters. The lanterns swayed violently, shadows twisting against the walls. Outside, the horses screamed again, their cries cutting through the rising wind. The woman took a step back, her hands trembling. The rancher reached for her, but when his fingers brushed her arm, she cried out. The light from him jumped to her, a spark that spread across her skin like lightning. She fell to her knees, clutching her chest. "No, no, it's too soon." He knelt beside her, gripping her shoulders. "What's happening?" Her voice came in broken gasps. "It's crossing. It's trying to finish what it started with me." The hum in the air grew louder, the walls groaning as if the barn itself were alive. A dark shape began to form near the far wall, faint at first, then solid. It rose slowly, tall and thin, its edges shifting like smoke. The rancher's breath caught in his throat. It didn't walk, it drifted. The shape leaned forward, faceless, the space where its eyes should have been glowing faintly. The woman's voice dropped to a whisper. "That's it, that's the part that never dies." He raised the shotgun again out of instinct, but his hands shook too hard to aim. The creature didn't react, didn't even seem to notice the weapon. It tilted its head, a sound like breath passing through hollow wood echoing in the space between them. The woman clutched the dirt, her body trembling as if pulled by some unseen current. The glow under her skin flickered, syncing with his own. "It's choosing," she said. "It's always choosing." "Choosing what?" he shouted. Her lips trembled. "Who stays and who carries it?" The rancher fired. The blast tore through the darkness, scattering straw and smoke. For a moment the creature fractured again, light spilling from its form, then it drew back together whole. It didn't bleed. It didn't move. It simply watched. He backed away, dragging her with him, but every step felt heavier than the last. The air pressed down on him like a storm building in his chest. The ground beneath their feet began to ripple, the boards creaking, shifting, cracking. He glanced down and froze. The light from his veins was seeping into the floor, running through the cracks like water. The wood began to pulse, alive, breathing. The woman screamed. "It's anchoring itself. It's using you." He tried to pull away, but the glow only grew stronger. The light crawled down his arms, his hands, his fingertips, then sank into the earth. His jaw clenched, a groan tearing from his throat as the power surged through him. The creature raised one long arm and pressed it to its chest. The gesture was slow, deliberate, almost reverent. Then everything stopped. The wind fell silent. The dust hung motionless in the air. Even the lantern flames froze mid-flicker. The only sound left was the rancher's breathing, ragged, desperate human. He looked around, eyes wide. The woman had gone still, her face turned toward him. "It's bound to you now," she whispered, "until someone takes it." He shook his head. "No, you said it feeds on fear. I'll starve it." Her expression softened, sad, almost tender. "You can't starve what you carry. It's part of your blood now." He opened his mouth to argue, but his voice died when he looked at her arm. The glow had vanished from her completely. Her skin was pale, smooth, untouched, as if she'd never been marked at all. She was free. "You passed it," he said slowly. She nodded, tears running down her cheeks. "That's what it wanted." He took a step back, his heart pounding so loud it hurt. "Then it's mine." The words felt final the moment they left his mouth. The creature began to fade, its shape melting into the air. The glow from his skin dimmed slightly, settling into a slow, steady rhythm like a second heartbeat. The ground stopped shaking. The wind softened. The world began to move again. He stood there in the middle of the barn, surrounded by stillness, the smell of smoke and fear still thick around him. The woman stood near the open doorway, her hand resting on the frame. She looked back once, her face caught in the faint light of dawn. "I'm sorry," she said. "You didn't deserve this." He wanted to yell, to curse, to demand she stay, but no sound came out. She turned and walked into the fading dark, her figure shrinking against the pale horizon. He sank to his knees, the shotgun slipping from his grasp. The glow beneath his skin pulsed once more, stronger, then settled again like it had found a home. The barn creaked quietly, the horses still gone, the night slowly giving way to the first light of morning. He pressed his hand against his chest, feeling that strange rhythm echo inside him. It wasn't just a mark anymore. It was something alive, something waiting. And in the quiet that followed, he could swear he heard it breathe. The morning light crept slow across the dirt, soft and gold, but it brought no warmth. The rancher sat against the side of the barn, the broken door hanging loose beside him. His shirt was torn, his hands covered in dried blood and dust. Every breath came uneven, shallow. He could still feel the faint hum under his skin, the quiet vibration of something alive that wasn't supposed to be there. The world outside had gone still again. The wind had stopped. The birds hadn't returned. Even the insects were silent, as if the land itself was holding its breath. He stared down at his arm, where the faint glow still pulsed beneath the surface. It wasn't bright now, just a steady rhythm, like it had settled in and made itself at home. He didn't know how long he'd been sitting there. Time didn't move right anymore. The sun had risen, but everything looked gray, washed out, as though the light couldn't quite reach this part of the world. He stood slowly, his body aching in ways that didn't feel natural. His shadow stretched across the barn floor, and for a moment he thought he saw it move differently, lagging behind, bending at strange angles. He blinked hard and it was gone. He stepped outside, boots crunching on dry dirt. The field stretched empty for miles, the horizon flat and silent. He expected to see her, the woman, walking down the long trail toward town. But she was gone. No footprints, no trace of her ever being there. Only the faint smell of burned hay and something metallic that lingered in the air. He ran a hand through his hair, his fingers trembling. "Get a grip," he muttered. His voice sounded strange, lower, rougher, as if someone else had spoken through him. He swallowed, the back of his throat dry. Somewhere deep inside he could still feel that echo, the presence. It wasn't attacking him, not yet, but it was there, waiting. He walked toward the corral, half hoping to find one of the horses left behind. The gates hung open, swaying slightly, though there was no wind. He stepped through, his boots dragging in the dirt, when something caught his eye, a pattern carved into the ground. Circular, precise. At first it looked like wagon tracks, but when he looked closer, the marks formed symbols. The same kind of markings that had been burned into the woman's skin. He crouched, brushing his fingers over the grooves. They felt warm. A pulse ran through the dirt, faint but alive. He yanked his hand back, stumbling. His breathing quickened. "No," he whispered. "No, not again." The pulse moved through the ground like ripples spreading in water. He could feel it climbing through his boots, up his legs, settling deep in his chest. His vision blurred, the sunlight bending strangely. The horizon seemed to tilt, the colors washing out until only gray and gold remained. He blinked and the world changed. The barn was gone. The land stretched endless and empty, the grass tall and black as ash. The air shimmered with heat, though he felt nothing but cold. And in the distance a figure, the woman, standing still, her torn dress fluttering in a wind he couldn't feel. He started toward her, his voice breaking. "Hey!" She didn't turn. He walked faster, his boots sinking into the soft dirt. Each step felt heavier, like the ground didn't want to let him go. "You left me," he said. "You knew this would happen." Her voice came faintly, carried by something unseen. "You weren't supposed to touch me." He stopped a few feet from her. The light hit her face just enough for him to see the truth. She wasn't breathing. Her eyes were open, glassy, and yet she spoke. "It won't leave you now. It found a way to stay." He took a step back, shaking his head. "You're not real." "I wasn't," she said softly, "but you made me real again." The words sank into him like stones. His chest ached, the glow beneath his skin brightening until it lit the space around him. "What are you?" he asked, his voice shaking. She tilted her head, a faint smile on her lips. "What you made me. What it made you." He blinked and she was gone. The world snapped back. He was standing alone near the corral, the wind finally moving again, the faint creak of wood returning to the air. But the mark burned hotter now, and with it came something new, voices, faint and layered, whispering in tones he couldn't understand. He clutched his head, teeth grinding. The whispers weren't outside. They were asterisk inside. He fell to his knees, pressing his palms to the dirt. The ground pulsed back at him, answering like it knew his touch. The voices grew louder, forming words that weren't words, sounds that twisted and looped. He could see flashes in his mind, the woman's face, the creature's hollow eyes, the light crawling across her skin, then his. He tried to fight it, but it wasn't something to fight. It was something to accept. The glow under his skin flared bright again, racing up his neck, his face, his eyes. He could feel the thing moving through him, like breath that wasn't his own. For a moment, he wasn't sure if he was standing or floating. He could feel the land, the soil, the trees, the barn, the sky, everything pulsing with the same rhythm. His rhythm. Then the whispers stopped. The light faded, settling deep into his veins like an ember cooling. He opened his eyes. The world looked the same, but it wasn't. The colors were sharper, the shadows deeper. He could hear the faint hum of the earth below him, steady and alive. He stood, brushing the dirt from his hands. The weight that had pressed on his chest all night was gone, replaced by something else, a strange calm, a stillness that wasn't peace. He turned toward the barn. The door hung open, swaying in the light breeze. The wind carried the faintest echo of a voice. Hers. "It's not done," it whispered. He looked at his reflection in the cracked window beside the door. The man staring back looked the same, but his eyes glowed faintly, gold under the morning light. He stared at them for a long time, not recognizing the man anymore. Somewhere deep inside him, the hum returned, quiet, constant, patient. It wasn't loud or violent now. It was part of him, woven into the rhythm of his heartbeat. He turned away from the barn, the sound of his boots echoing across the empty land. The sky stretched wide and endless above him, gold fading into blue. The wind brushed past, whispering faintly through the grass, and for the first time he didn't flinch at the sound. He just kept walking,